The Oscars are like my Super Bowl. I have seen every single telecast for at least the last 16 years. I have seen so many undeserving winners. But before we get to this year's nominees, I need to show you this. I'm currently on vacation and visiting my parents, and I'm in this room they've converted into a shrine honoring me. And up here in the closet are just so many VHS classics. Like this one from Disney, A Kid in King Arthur's Court. Who could forget this one? Likely everyone. And yes, I had VHS. I mean, I go so far back that I used to have Betamax when I was a kid, which is not just a character in Big Hero 6. It's also how old people watch motion pictures. So the first thing we need to get out of the way is to acknowledge the fact that the Oscars, the Academy Awards, are an award show. But that being said, I still get swept up in the majesty of it. What I kind of love about it is that there is this huge snowball effect that happens where they absolutely screw over people and films that should have been honored. And by doing that, they have to make that up in a few years' time and then screw over somebody else. This year, the Best Picture race has 9 films, so let's go through them alphabetically. Number 1, Arrival. This is probably, at least as of this taping, my favorite film that I've seen this year for a whole host of different reasons. But the brief synopsis that I'll give you here is that what I enjoy about it is that it is more complex sci-fi than what we normally get. Somewhat, spoiler alert, it deals with time, not necessarily time travel, but understanding that time, for some people, might not be linear, and has this central question, which is, if you knew that something bad was going to happen to you, for sure, in the future, would you still live your life the same way? And that's a really fascinating topic that I think it explores extremely well and really rewards repeat viewings. I love pretty much everything about this film. I'm a huge Denis Villeneuve fan who has directed Prisoners and Enemy and Sicario, I believe, before this. So I think a very strong filmmaker. He's also going on to do Blade Runner 2049 here this year. So very excited about that. Amy Adams does a great central performance, and I think the music is pretty swell too. I just think it's a whole package that is truly phenomenal. Next up is Fences, which is Denzel Washington directing as well as starring, and Viola Davis does a powerhouse performance. This is really a film that exists because of the performances. I'm not that huge of a fan of the actual directing of this piece, but the 2 central performances are admittedly great. And I'm normally the person who defends films that feel like plays, but even in this one, I feel like the camera really was just set up and allowing the performances to happen without being this participant in the film, which kind of gets a little bit boring after a while, and it is a long film. This is almost 2.5 hours long, which is great for a play because you get to get up and like stretch your legs at intermission time, and here, not so much. Definitely worth seeing because of the performances, but I doubt this is something I'm going to be watching years from now. Hacksaw Ridge. This is the film that Hollywood has basically welcomed Mel Gibson back with, and I think that it's well deserved. I know there's a lot of pushback because of the Mel Gibson quotient that's inside of this, but I think it's a really strong movie. And listen, I've gone on record as saying I'm not the most religious person in the world, but I thought that the central performance from Andrew Garfield, who is this deeply religious man who does not at all accept violence in his life, still wants to fight for his country as a medic, but does not hold a gun at all, and still shows the most bravery I have seen of any war film. It's brutal how Mel Gibson films this, but I still felt uplifted by the end of this story. And I know that some people didn't, but that was my interpretation. Sorry. Hell or High Water is this modern day Western, and Jeff Bridges does his Jeff Bridges thing. I mean, I don't think he's doing anything revelatory in his character. Yeah? Oh, hi. What can I help you with? Who do you think should win Best Picture?
Mommy, sir.
La La Land? Alright.
Mommy, sir.
Say goodnight, Uncle Kyle.
I'll see you in a bit. This is a movie that I enjoyed when I saw it, but it has slowly crept into my subconscious to make me love it a lot more the more I think about it. And this is a movie that feels very present day at the same time. This is all about the feelings that so many people had going into that 2016 presidential election of feeling like no one is actually listening to them, and how that is changing the fabric of American life. Hidden Figures is a fine film. I know I'm gonna get so much pushback on this. It's fine. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that it is a very by the numbers movie. It's like the Disneyfication of a real world story, it's a serviceable story. What I appreciated about it was showing me a story that I had no idea actually existed, and it's funny and there's some great moments. But it's one of those things I have with biopics for the most part, where I feel I don't think that's exactly how it actually happened. This is a movie thing that's happening that needs to move the plot forward, but that's probably not at all what actually happened. At the end, this is something that I would have rather watched a documentary about than watched a fictional film about. La La Land. So, this is like the inverse of Hell or High Water for me, which is, I really enjoyed it when I first went to see it, but I've actually liked it less the more I get away from it. Whereas I still think that the musical numbers are fantastic and great and staged so beautifully well, and the costuming and the production design is all top notch. But the stuff that happens in between that stuff drags it. There's not a sense of urgency inside of it. I don't know how much I really like the characters, but I just got swept away with the music and the production that I was able to forgive it a little bit. But the more I think of it, it's like, yes, music is great. The movie, maybe not. Lion is the movie that I've seen most recently, and it's really that one that was on nobody's radar going into Oscar season. And I think it's good, although I think the first half is much stronger than the second half. In much the same way as I feel about Hidden Figures, I think I would have appreciated a documentary more than I would have a fictional film. They just needed to rush through a whole lot of things within this 2-hour running time, and so I was very taken with the story of this young kid who gets separated from his brother, can't find his way back home, and actually gets adopted by an Australian family. That whole story is fascinating. The zipping forward 20 years to him as an adult and going back is like, okay, like, I don't know. There's something about it that just didn't grab me as much as being in that world of a small boy seeing this large world and not being able to find home again. So there's some great performances. I think the photography, like the cinematography of this movie is incredible. But again, a movie I'm probably never going to revisit. Manchester by the Sea. This is a film that you absolutely do not want to watch if you want to have a good time. That's not to say it's not a good movie. I really, really appreciated this movie. I think the best feature is the screenplay. The writing of this movie is so good. The speeches that are said, the character development that happens in it, the showing and not telling aspect of the film are all things I enjoy. But it is rough. I'm not going to spoil any of the plot, but especially if you have young kids, like, this is a hard movie to watch. Like, you are just pounded with grief upon grief upon grief. And this is why Casey Affleck will most likely win. It's going to be him or Denzel who are going to win Best Actor, but he puts in a phenomenal performance in this movie, and you feel for him. And there's not a clean resolution to this. This is something that really at the end you're like, well, you're still going to feel sad, main character, and that's just what reality is going to be for you. So I kind of appreciate this on so many different fronts, but it's not a movie I'm like, yeah, I got to go sit down and watch Manchester by the Sea, a double feature with this and Schindler's List. It's going to be great. And finally we come to Moonlight, and this is a movie I absolutely need to go and see again because I did like it. I very much appreciated this film and was taken by the story. These types of movies need to get made because one of the things I enjoy about cinema is the fact that I do believe it gains empathy, or can give people who watch these movies empathy to characters that they don't normally see on screen. And not that every film has to be escapist or anything like that, but again, kind of like with Manchester by the Sea, kind of like Lion, this is something that is not like the easiest movie to watch. It still has phenomenal performances, the directing is really good. It's just something that after I watched it I was like, yeah, that was good, but was it great? I didn't see it. But I think it's one of those movies, kind of like Casablanca was when I was starting to really get into movies, where I watched it the first time, I was like, alright, I guess, I understand why people like that. It wasn't until the second and third viewings I was like, oh, I get it. Anyways, those are the movies that are nominated for Best Picture. Hopefully you'll be watching next week. I'm going to be trying to, because for the first time in a long time, I am not going to be available on Sunday night to watch it as it's happening live. I will be in New York City for NerdCon Nerdfighteria. Why did they decide to do this on Oscar night? And I'm a big cinema snob and pretentious person, so I would definitely love to hear your feedback down in the comments below about the films that you saw this year. If you've seen any of these Best Picture nominees, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. If you don't know, my name is Kyle. I upload videos every Monday and Thursday, and you have all the stuff underneath there, like bells you can click on and like buttons you can click on. there's stuff you can interact with in this video. Please do. If you want to have just a mind-bending movie to watch though, I recommend The Handmaiden. It's a Korean film. There is a lot of softcore porn in it, but there's a point to it. It's like a little puzzle box where you think one thing is happening and then nope, there's something else going on, and then nope, again, there's something else completely that's going on. It was just a great movie. I really, really enjoyed it.